So I think there's, I guess I'm new here, so I kind of fit into this category, and I think there's real possibility for that.
Well,
I haven't
I just
seen
know-
the floodgates open.
I just know that when we had applicants last year for these committees, there were
A lot.
a lot.
That's true.
Okay, so I
That's
think
true.
advertising at Christmas time and right after Christmas, this is a very tough
Well, and it's
time
also
for
a
people.
partial term, right?
And it's
I
a
don't know if
partial,
that matters.
well, I just think that it's not, like the regular, committee openings, so that's what I think, so. Anyway, not to interrupt you about that.
No, I think we're just all sort of openly discussing it.
Okay.
I actually think we can manage it ourselves effectively. I think that this issue with reprisal, we have to take it on, we have to be serious about it, and I think we are.
Mhm.
There may have been times we weren't, I don't know, but
Mhm.
since I've been here, I've seen it be taken seriously. I think the public perception is a real issue,
Mhm.
and
And I think what happens is, it reduces the number of committee members or council members because of recusals. And so you are not functioning with a full board when you have spouses or relatives on, boards and commissions. And so you are hamstringing yourself. And if you are down somebody who's sick, or maybe, you might not even have a quorum at a key meeting because a member has to recuse themselves.
But as Bill's pointed out a number of times, people have to step out. There's a procedure that, he's responsible for deciding who to come back in. And I don't think that there's been, I don't think there's been an issue. You can always have an issue. I'll be the first to tell you. You can always have an issue. You can always think of, well, in this case here, something could happen, this could happen, that could happen. But there hasn't been an issue. There hasn't been an issue. And I do think that really the council needs to make their decision at the time. You want to talk about public perception? There could be public perception too. This is the people that get staffed on certain committees maybe gave donations to the people that are voting for them. Or that they get appointed a committee because they really want to be on the committee, and then they're running like 6 months later, and hey, there's a $1,000 donation. Hey, people can make hay when they want to make hay.
That's not what we're talking about.
Well, I'm not saying, but
That's
but
not
I
what we're
am.
talking about.
Well,
So, anyway, is this going to come back to us? in a
Yes, it
resolution?
would come back to the council at a future meeting for adoption of the whole packet, and this would be a separate individual policy. Now, there's ways to wordsmith it and things like that I could probably put in there as alternatives for the council's consideration, but that's where it would progress.
the other thing, George, is that, and I thought we had changed this. When somebody gets termed out, I know it says here a 2-year waiting period, but I thought when we met in August, when we went over this thing, maybe it was a year and a half ago, I'm not remembering. But I thought we said that it would be a 1 year, I think we didn't say that it was a 2-year waiting period, but I may be mistaken. But, Teresa, you might want to check that out, but I did think that we said that 1 year waiting period.
Before reappointment or something?
Yeah, and then, of course, then you did represent, properly that we have the situation with, if no one applies, then somebody else, like John Ruggiero this time. The other thing is that, you guys, we went through the whole thing, and you've got the number of people, and thank you, Bill, for updating the numbers to make sure, we got the one council number, et cetera. Again, hey, I'm not on the environmental programs committee now, but I do know that there's been issues.
yeah.
And so, you know, at one time it had 12, and only 2 people or 3 people showed up.
Mhm.
And so, and I think 2 of them were city staffers. So maybe there were two residents that came.
I think the current resolution reflects the reduction.
Well, I think that you might want to consider, for a discussion item, making it smaller so that, I mean, there is going to be 1 council member, you know, and there's an alternate, but there's 1 council member and, you know, I mean, 3 residents. I mean, if that's all we can get.
No, I think
It says that.
point 2.
Right, it said,
No,
we
it
just,
says 6.
I know, it says-
5 plus 1.
right, but the council doesn't count as a member,
Right.
so it's 5, so all you need is 3 residents for a quorum.
Yeah, but you have to have, but if you don't have 5 people on the committee, then we can't have, then the committee
No,
gets
all you need is
skipped.
3. All you need is 3. Even if there's 2 vacancies, all you need is 3.
Wait, you need a majority of the appointees, not of the,
number of,
not of the
Right.
ordinance.
potential, yeah.
Right.
All right,
As
because
we
I
saw
think
the last
that,
time.
I mean, we've skinnied, that is my only point. We've skinnied down the committees
Mhm.
to just, this is how the community really can try and affect their own business. And so I think it's important that we have the committees, and
Well,
you all right?
So, Mr. Reese,
Hey, I'm just going on a trap door here. This is to get rid of
We're
somebody.
going in the-
Hey, we're former council members down there. Jeez.
That's where they put them,
Yeah.
when you don't work
Well,
out.
all right, well, the check.
So anyway.
That makes
This
sense.
whole building.
So the only thing was is that, you know, I think we need to make sure that all the committees are able to function,
Right.
you know. And environmental programs are something we definitely need. So
I
if
think
it's all we need
environmental
is 3
programs in
people,
direction.
great, no
I think
problem.
it's kind of.
Yeah, we saw that one
lack
at the
of-
last go
lack
around of the
direction
resolution.
and focus.
Carrie, can I,
Yep.
since this is a study session for brainstorming, after hearing the dilemma with the nepotism issue, let me see if I can distill it. The staff doesn't care too much about the traffic committee, and we don't care a whole lot about the audit committee. These people provide a valuable service, but they don't take any final action that can stand alone. Here's my real problem, and he's sitting right here. It has been a staff problem, because every time an issue comes up that we know is going to go from the planning commission to the city council, then it requires coordination, requires staff to physically talk about, okay, and there have been times where the staff has put something preliminarily out at the planning commission level. The law says if it has been discussed with a person present, he's now disqualified, and we've had to tap dance around the issue. Almost every city that I'm aware of does not let a planning commissioner have a spouse that's a city council member, and that for one straight reason. And I can draw a distinction between that position and all the other ones, because that position takes final action that affects property rights. It is a constitutional issue, if you will. Due process has to be afforded these people. That's far more serious than anybody on any other committee. And because of that, we spend more time, more effort, and there have been some times where I've had to make awkward discussions with Bill about, who's gonna have to recuse and things like that. And I've gotten calls from the planning commission chair going, hey, how come one of my members can't participate? I don't get this. And it has been one where it looks like staff is making stuff up. Because,
Herm fell. The reason Herm called you, Herm was on this free speech thing, because he called me a number of times. His issue was the free speech, not with, hey, why come I've lost the committee, because he was trying to make a point, and he was trying to.
don't know.
I had the
Whatever the reason, I mean,
conversation.
it created an
The
issue.
only point I'm making is,
Whatever the
I've
reason,
had
it
this
created an
question from the media once before about, hey, wait a minute, what's this? This is real confusing. And quite frankly, if we had an employee nepotism policy, because almost all cities do, because look, in the end, if you think about who our employees are, they're all cops, with the exception of 3 or 4 others.
Yeah.
And we have men and women, and the next thing you know, they're dating, and the next thing you know, your nepotism policy, if you don't have one, it's gonna be too late. But if it were just the employees and specifically the planning commission can't have a familial relationship because they actually impact people's money. It costs $2,000 for a use permit, and now if it goes to the city council and we discover there was an anomaly and now we've got to go back and redo it, it costs people money. It doesn't cost people money in all of our other committees, and because of that, like as a minimum, remember. Well, Elizabeth and Bill, you remember when I was hired, one of the things you said was, let's talk about eliminating potential litigation. Do everything we can to shrink down the things that cause litigation. I will tell you, anything from the planning commission to the city council where there's any kind of a disconnect or an anomaly, you're talking about a potential for litigation. Now, Carrie, you're right. We haven't had it come up yet.
Yeah.
Please don't ask me if I've seen these things before, because we don't do these. Both George and I, we talked about, when George came on board, about the lack of a nepotism policy here. And he was a little shocked and surprised, and I told him, look, staff has raised it. We said, John Danielson and I said, we don't like it, but at the same time I told Bill it's not illegal. It does raise issues, and if you really want to be the squeaky cleanest you can get, I would say, is employees and the planning commission can be problems. And I'm not picking on Mary Beth, because I think both Bill and Mary Beth have been very effective when they've been able to participate.
It's been very rare that one of us has.
No, it is rare, but there's going to be, if you look down the line here, I believe there's going to be more and more issues. We have some school issues coming up with EIRs, and they are going to be somewhat dicey and tricky, and there's going to be neighbors, it's going to pit neighbors against schools. And because of these kind of issues we see on the horizon, we're anticipating problems. And these problems are best solved before they're problems. And the easiest way is to have a policy where you can't have a problem. And then after that, we're just reacting to every instance, and they're all somewhat different. Not impossible, just not as good.
So let me ask a question. Are you attempting to address the conflict between Bill and Mary Beth with this nepotism policy?
It would certainly do that, yes.
But it would be prospective in terms of its application.
It wouldn't apply to them at
So
all.
it wouldn't address anything that you just said?
No, but it would address it in the future.
Or next week, or whenever we appoint, I'm guessing, or if we had an applicant that was a member of family, we could do that if we in fact
Sure.
opposed the
Sure.
policy. So we wouldn't have two people on the planning commission, per se.
Right.
Thought my husband was gonna apply. You know how much he would love to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for him for council.
Yeah.
It's not like we can't.
You gonna have one where you can't have a husband and wife both on the council as well? I mean, that could happen, I don't know.
Absolutely.
No,
What if you get
this
married
policy
and you're
says
on
that you,
No.
it actually says it's discouraged, I think. It doesn't say it can't occur, if I read this right.
Because they wouldn't have to violate the Brown Act. I mean, it's like the Ullmans. I mean, I remember there was a discussion with the Ullmans. I remember it was Kathy. I think it was Kathy.
But
Says,
it
well,
was
how are they
just,
gonna violate the Brown Act?
they're just the art committee, and they weren't, and actually the art committee was in so many other violations of,
Thank you.
things
Thank you for saying that. I will-
that we needed to make that a separate
That was pre-us.
deal,
Yeah.
yeah.
They
Well,
had
it was
money.
really pre-me
They
too.
handled
I
money.
mean,
That
they
was
had
the
just
problem.
been doing this for years and years and years. Anyway.
But
okay, so-
spouses on the committees, though, are a challenge for staff, because, if you got a 5-member committee, 2 of them are, husband and wife, or spouses, or domestic partners, or whatever, you can't form a
They're gonna-
subcommittee with
Yeah, but we.
either of them.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
Okay, so to address the real issue, we faced, since I've been around, we faced it once, which was on the Sacred Heart decision, which wasn't a problem. It was not a particularly intense position, but it was, there were only 3 of us left, because both of you had to recuse yourselves.
Well, in that case, it was because it was.
Yeah, know where she lives,
Proximity and things like that.
I understand
But if
that.
you needed to have a breaker or something like that, Bill has a process, and he makes a decision, I think it's Bill, you make the decision, because you and I have talked about it, as to who you would decide how and who to bring back.
No, the city clerk by law, it draws
Okay,
law,
okay.
but that only occurs when there's a temporary problem, but not, couldn't apply in this case, because
It's a
these two
permanent
people
problem.
are permanently,
Recused.
where it happens, where you see the doctrine of necessity come in, is what it's called, is if 2 people go on vacation, and you have a 2-to-1 vote, and now that's not enough to adopt an ordinance or a resolution. It's gotta be 3 votes. So now you're sitting there going, oh, what do we do? Well, what you do is you continue to the next meeting when somebody will come back, and they become the tiebreaker or make a tie. But it's where if 2 people are disqualified and will always be disqualified at that point, and if there was a vacancy on the council, then you have to bring one of them back, you draw lots, and they get to fully participate as if they didn't have a disqualifying in there.
Won't stop the public outcry in any way, shape, or form. but-
It won't, and I will tell you right now, if you have that situation where you have a council member married to a commissioner, I will guarantee you, if you went and asked the public, because I get it from the media, that somebody asked me, if you said, how does that fit in with the Brown Act? And you say, well, they can't discuss it among themselves. Really? The police, they call it pillow talk.
Why can't they discuss it? I mean, I can talk to any one council member.
One, yes, but the problem is, as we caution you in our indoctrination, you have to be real careful about that, because then if either one of you, without the knowledge of the other, talks to a 3rd person, you've just violated the Brown Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But any council member can talk to any planning commissioner.
Yes, but it's much less of a potential for violating the Brown Act if you don't have that that
But
inherent
this is all, so my problem with it, this is all potential that can be managed by individuals, and that the Brown Act, after all, I mean, you have to manage it by individuals.
It can get fairly confusing, and as there, I believe Bill and I have had this conversation on 3 different projects now, and it's a conversation of who knew what, who said what, who did what, and then I have to go to staff that were there at the meetings as to what was said, usually Lisa, what was presented to them, what information was given to them in writing, who got it. If she sends information to Mary Beth, he's disqualified, because now she's participated.
Yeah.
And because of that, even if Bill and Mary Beth haven't yet decided who's going to participate. Now, if you think it's confusing for us, how does the staff, how does the public figure this out?
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, because remember the so-called, the inherent conflict of interest says you have to even avoid the perception of
That's right.
possible
That's right.
misconduct.
And the
Now,
Brown Act says that too.
I don't believe, and I would say this under oath, I don't believe that Bill and Mary Beth have truly violated any laws or conduct codes or anything else. But I will tell you, there is a staff input that takes place. It doesn't take much from them to make us have to go through this rigmarole on every single case, because not every case is quasi-judicial. Some cases have elements of both, like where there's an EIR and then there's maybe an administrative action after that, which was like the cutting down of the trees or not to cut down the trees. And so every one of these actions that has an EIR or where there's now an appeal, now they might guess that there's going to be an appeal. And, for instance, the school, Carton Fields, I will tell you right now, my guess
is the issue
is,
that I think about.
well, my guess is that there would be an appeal, just a guess.
Based on the people that are involved.
Based on the comments they have made to
Lawyers.
staff.
I think we have to.
The letters they send
High probability.
And because of that, you know, I've told Bill and Mary Beth get to decide who's gonna participate, but then they have to recuse themselves fully and completely from the onset on. You can't like, oh, well, Mary Beth did half, but she hasn't voted yet.
And we work with you and George on that.
Yeah, and we have.
Yes.
And we have. And by the way, this is a policy that's not specifically aimed at Bill and Mary Beth. I mean,
No, I understand.
I look at this as a long-term policy that will say to people in the future, look, Mary Beth would be great on the transportation committee, or she'd be great on the,
Well, maybe you should make some edits to it, because right now the way it says is no committee.
right now, this is pretty generic, and it is pretty much what most cities do. But you've made some points tonight. The fact is, this is a small community, and it's sometimes hard to get people, you know, the EPC is a good example.
Because that's not the reason the EPC, but anyway.
No.
I just want to circle back one more time, okay? And not to beat it into the ground, because no matter what the process is and how diligent you are, and Mary Beth has recused herself from the get-go on Carton Field, now we are operating with a 4-member planning commission. We are hamstrung, we don't have a full planning commission. And at this point, we only have a 3-member planning commission because, you know, of Herm's passing. So it just makes it muddles up everything. And I'm sorry, you know, I think that Mary Beth's appointment to the traffic was probably fine. You know, it just muddled things a lot for the planning commission, just because of what city attorney has been talking about. And it just because she clearly recuses herself, or you clearly recuse yourself, one or the other of the board or commission is operating shorthanded.
But we can certainly edit the policy down
We can.
so that it clearly just focuses on the planning commission.
And Rick, let me, you will, I think, understand this from your lawyer background. I will tell you that in my career, on more than 10 occasions, I've had attorneys walk to the podium to address the city council. And the first thing they say is, I would like to request that so-and-so recuse him or herself because of, and they will say, because Mary Beth was on the planning commission. Now, I will explain, she did not participate in it. Now, what do you think the almanac is going to write? The almanac's going to write that there was a public perception that turned out to be incorrect, but there, you know, the issue was raised, and reporters like to make issues out of non-issues.
Really?
Yeah, really. So all we're saying is we think this is, in the long run, it's a way to make things work better.
Take another crack at it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you know.
I didn't touch
He didn't complain.
I watched him, he didn't cough,
It's very
or
sad.
sneeze
No.
once.
But nobody could know.
Headaches.
I want Atherton.
Yeah, thanks for being considerate.